Toni, thank you for chatting, and awesome to be here at this Terex event with like a lot of good food. Seems like you guys are being treated really well this week.
Oh yeah, always are. Terex really knows how to look after us really well, and this week is especially the case. All the catered food, I mean, you've tasted it, it's pretty darn good.
Awesome. And how has it been so far being in Chamonix? How much have you been out on the course, or has it largely been staying down, resting, just getting those essential last workouts in?
Yeah. Well, I'm luckily enough, I live quite close to Cham, so I've managed to, throughout summer, kind of head up here and get out onto the course, which is, I think, always valuable. The last 2 weeks have been less of that. I think I've been out on the last section, kind of from Juin back to Cham, once or twice. But mostly this period is about kind of reducing volume, preparing your things for crew and your race strategies. Just freshening up. As Robert said the other day, you can really only stuff it up here.
Yeah.
So it's really just about chilling now, and the work's been done, enjoying it, embracing where we are, and hope for the best on the day.
Brilliant. And how has the work and the preparation all of this year been going and been feeling?
I guess it's been a good year so far. It started a little bit rough. I was supposed to do Transvolcania at the beginning of the year in May, but the transition for me out of winter is just a little bit tricky. I haven't quite nailed that yet, because living in South Africa, we don't really get winters like we do here. So transitioning out of like the skiing and the winter sports into running again, I've not quite figured out the right recipe yet. So I wasn't quite ready for Transvolcania at the beginning of the year, and my season started a bit later, but I'm quite grateful for that. I think the season is so long now. You can start it in the middle of June, you can start it in July and still have a full year of racing. So I feel like my training has been really good. It's been very consistent, and my coach is Tom Evans, and he
not a bad guy to have as a
coach. Great person to have as a coach, especially as I'm doing CCC. I mean, previous champion, coached Engelberg who's also a previous champion. Yeah. So he knows a recipe that works for the race, and I feel like I've been in really good hands.
Awesome. And you obviously have moved over here from South Africa. When did you do that move, and was that specifically so that you can be in this sort of environment year round out on this terrain?
Yeah, I moved here at the beginning of last year. I kind of did my first winter season in January, but I moved. At first I wasn't moving to stay. I just needed a break from running. So for me, that winter break was something that I've never done, and I was really appealed by the idea. So I came and did my first ski season last year in January, February, and I couldn't leave. It had always been something that I'd thought about doing and staying, but I hadn't quite figured out the logistics of that. And last year I made a real big effort to figure that out. I managed to stay, and I've got a really great partner here, and we live very happily down near Annecy. But the move has been very much something that I've been thinking about, because I think with racing now you have to train very specifically for the races. There's no, you can't just generalize train.
Yeah.
So for me, living in South Africa, the terrain doesn't translate well to Europe. We don't have the same climbs, we don't have the same technicality. So I feel if I wanted to perform here, I needed to be here. And I have noticed a huge difference in my performances after having been here for a full year. So I definitely think it's been the right move, although moving comes with its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
So it's not been easy, but it's definitely been the right move for my career.
Yeah, and definitely worse places to move to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so bad here.
Yeah, not so bad. So last year you obviously won OCC. You'd had a few years of progressing up, creeping up to finally get that win. How was that race, and also what was the decision after those few years of focusing on OCC to step up to CCC?
Yeah, I think my story is one that we've seen before. You get more experience, you learn more about yourself, you learn more lessons on how to approach racing and training, and being part of this team was a big part of that progression as well. Last year I had again a bit of a rough start to the year coming out of winter. It's very similar to this year. I guess I was super calm going into the race last year, and I think my mindset was one of, I've got nothing to lose now, because the year hadn't quite happened the way I'd wanted it to. And I think that was actually the biggest lesson that I took away from that race, is that mindset going into the race is so important, and it's really there's no use in like stressing about the race beforehand, because you've done what you can do, and that's as much as you can, and you can only use what you've got. And I guess that race was, yes, a culmination of all the years of training that I've done, but also kind of just one of those magical days where things click. And I can't tell you why that happened. I can't tell you what I did, or like if my training was so specific that it, just something came together. But it was one of those days where the flow just came, and I felt great. My headspace was good. I fueled well. So yeah, I guess it's the race that, like those kind of situations where you're always dreaming it's going to happen, and we're always striving for it to happen again. So hopefully that happens again this year, but I'm not so sure. And then I guess the decision to move up to CCC has been one that I've bounced around for a couple months. It wasn't something that I straight away thought about doing after the race at all. It's very much only been probably around April, May, June that I kind of really started considering it, and only confirmed my CCC entry in June. And I think the biggest motivation for me to step up to the 100K distance was motivation. Going back to OCC, I didn't have that same drive to perform there again. I didn't feel like I could do better. The possibility of me doing worse than I did last year was greater than the possibility of me doing better. So for me, I had nothing left to prove at that race, and I wanted to challenge myself. I want to be curious in my training, and it needs to be exciting. I think if you're going to perform well at a race, you have to be excited about it. And I didn't have that excitement. So for me, that step up was not necessarily one I felt ready for, but one that I was more motivated to train for than for OCC again.
So hypothetically, if you were to win CCC this year, next year, would we be seeing you on the main UTMB start line?
No. No, I don't think that's how that progression's going to work. Honestly, I think I love the 50K distance. I think it's a distance that's super fun to train for, and it's super challenging, and it's always very competitive. And there are a lot of races within that kind of sub-ultra distance that I would love to do still. So I think I'll kind of bop around between the 50 and 100K for a while before I consider 100 miles. It's just, that's a whole nother beast that mentally I just don't think I'm ready for, and physically I don't think I'm prepared for either. So I'm happy to stick around the 50K distance, dabble in the 100K, get a bit more experience there first. And at the end of the day, I don't think, not every 100K runner is a 100-mile runner as well. Yeah. And I think it's important that we distinguish those as athletes. Like, you wouldn't compare a 100-meter sprinter to a 10K athlete. And I think that's a similar comparison that we can make here. So, for me, it's a test and to see the waters in the 100K, but it doesn't mean that I'm definitely going to move up.
No, that really makes sense. Obviously, you mentioned about last year in OCC having that magical day. Hopefully, you'll have that magical day again this year. But outside of that, and for those challenging moments that do inevitably come, do you have any mental tactics that you prepare and that you will call on?
I guess it's not something that I've thought about in such a direct manner. I guess I haven't planned exactly how what I'm going to do to combat these dark thoughts that I'm probably going to have. I do feel like that my training has been challenging enough that I've been to some really difficult places, and I've definitely felt a lot more emotions in my training than I have previously, and I think that is just a combination of long hours. And I've managed to kind of stay mostly positive throughout all of that. So I'm hopeful that my training has prepared me enough to deal with that. I do think, though, having a really good crew and people that you love and trust and know support you out en route is super important. And for me, I've got my partner and my mom is coming out as well. So I think that's going to be really helpful for me to just keep my mind in a positive space. One thing that I really do want to try and do is stay emotionless, and that sounds really harsh, but I think being emotional, like getting emotional about your races, whether good, I mean, more so in the negative sense, but I think as soon as you get emotional in a negative way, it's really hard to pull yourself out of that, and I actually find it quite draining. It's happened a couple times in training where I've just like wanted to cry, and it's really hard. So for me, the goal is to kind of stay away from that zone and combat that with, positive reinforcement, and hopefully seeing friendly faces out there will help with that too.
Absolutely. So lastly, just a few quick fire questions.
Cool.
In training, running with or without music?
Depends. I've recently started, sorry, this is supposed to be quick fire.
Oh no, make it as long as you like.
I never used to train with music, and I've never raced with music, but it's something that I've dabbled with in my CCC training, just on those longer days where, like, again, mentally things get rough and it's nice to have a bit of a distraction. So I'm kind of like 70-30 against music. Sometimes music is important.
Nice. And when you do use music, is there a go-to song?
I normally put it on Smart Shuffle on Spotify, and just whatever that throws at me is probably good.
Nice. Favorite place in the world to trail run?
Probably my home in the Reservoir mountain range.
Nice. Summer or winter in the mountains?
Summer.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah, I like winter, but I'm definitely a summer gal.
And what are you going to do immediately after the race to hopefully celebrate?
Give my family a big hug and call my parents. Well, my mom's going to be here, actually. That's a bad example. But that's what I would normally do. Yeah, just hug the people that are closest to me who are there to support me the whole day. And then have a glass of wine.
Amazing. No, thank you so much, Toni, and best of luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.